this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I keep getting asked about my notes, and this is not easy to film, and I know last time I tried it, which is a long time ago, there were lots of things that are in my notes now that, that weren't there then, and quite a few people said, yeah, great video, really interesting, and I'm glad you talked it through because it's so small I can't read it. Well, I've already blown it up once, but I think I need to blow it up a bit more, or you're just not going to read it. Let's try 150 and see what that does. Well, if I go up much bigger, we're only going to see a couple of columns, so yeah, that's about as big as I can go. Get your big screens out, put your phone away. If you're looking at this on your phone, you're really not going to see much. Anyway, I'm starting at the bottom because these are my generalized notes, if you see what I mean. And I've got a lot of color coding so that I can look at stuff at a glance and just find what I want, and I'll go over some of that. The red notes here are anything that is quite important and really applies to the whole grow room. Things like, on the 11th of the 5th, everything was sprayed with the fungicide, and the dosage I used, and a note telling me to repeat in 10 days time, which I promptly didn't do because the next application was on the 29th of the 5th, everything sprayed with fungicide. Now that fungicide was supplied to me by a viewer, which I strictly speaking can't get in this country unless I cheat and buy it from other places in the EU and use eBay to bypass the UK rules, which was what was done when that was posted to me, because that's a chemical you're not supposed to have in the UK. Well, you can't buy it in the UK, let's put it that way. And then the latest note that was added in there, 17th to the 18th of the 7th, i.e. a couple of days ago, everything was sprayed with the systemic pesticide on the grounds I had possible thrips. So those are big notes. Some of my colour coding, I've got a blue colour, which we'll get to where it gets used in a minute, which indicates that that plant needs a drier winter rest. And I've made a note that it's that colour will be used on the right hand side of the column. And then I've got my lights gradation. I've just realised I've got the same colour twice. Well, we can get rid of that for a start. I'll do it in a minute. But basically, on the name of the plant, there's a colour coding depending on its light needs. So I've got the highest light I can possibly give something, which is in orange. And then the next one down from that is what I class as high light level. That's things like cattleyas, various other things will go into that. And then the medium light levels, and then the lower light levels. Okay, and I've just updated to say that I've watered my air plants. And then over here, sometimes I'm in a rush and I can't update the whole spreadsheet, so I just put in generalized notes. 16th of the 7th, most dailies sprayed with RO water. That means they effectively got a sort of flush. You can't flush an orchid with a sprayer. I don't believe you can get enough water in there. That's my view. And then on the 17th, the day after, the dailies were watered with MSU at 180. So that's a light level feed. That would be suitable, although perhaps a little bit high, for things like Masdevallias and Restrepias. But nice low level feed. And then on the 18th, they were sprayed again with just water because I was in a hurry. Yesterday, they didn't get done. A lot of them were still damp. You saw the video of the storms and things, we had dull days. And again, the Vandas I keep notes separately because they're always at higher level feeds. The water in the bucket is currently at an MSU level of 320. That's not high, but it's plenty high enough for something that gets dunked in the water virtually every single day. So my Vandas are getting fed at a lower level than I would normally use for Vandas, but it gets done every day. And the only exception to that is when I change the water. So on the 14th, it's now the 20th, coming up to change time, the Vandas were flushed because when I change the water, they always get watered in that pure water and they get a good slosh around to wash the roots off. And that lot has got nothing to do with my notes. I keep a date when something is repotted, and I even colour code that. So the date in moss green indicates that the Orchiata bark was used. Yeah, now that was important to me as I gradually repotted things from my old bark, which was pretty naff to say the least, into the Orchiata. Apart from the odd new plant, everything has now been transferred, so that colour now is really redundant, but I leave it there. And then any repot dates that's in orange means it's a mount, or it's classed as a daily, because I've got some dailies that are actually in open baskets in large bark, so they're like a mount, it's just an open basket. So that's the colour coding there. I'll just slide up a bit to look at some of the plants and the sort of details I keep, and you can see the colour coding coming in now. You notice that the Rhynchoredes Bangkok Sunset is not at the same level as Vanda's. It'll burn. It's a lower level light type of Vanda. My Neophonetas, they're at lower light levels. My Rhynchostelis giganteas, I've got two. I need to change the colour on that because they're now getting quite a bit more light than they got last year, on the grounds they're in that lovely set called Why Won't You Bloom? And they still haven't. So just coming up the list there, you can see my Tolumnias are at the highest light level, one below Vanda's. They need good light. And then you've got various things at lower lights till you get to Phalaenopsis, which I class as quite low light requirements. Although they're getting a bit more than they used to, it's still the lowest light of the plants I've got in the grow room. So what I call it is irrelevant. It's just, you know, they get lower light than other things nowadays. There's all my Oncidiums and Odontoglossums and all that sort of stuff. I'll just go up through this list actually. Miltoniopsis, Miltonias, Maxillarias, Restrepias, Masdevallias, Epidendrums, Encyclias, Dendrobiums, I've got a few of them. Coelogenes. See, I've got three of the same plant here. What am I doing? Sell them. Got two Cristata lemonianas. One of them's got to go. And then I've got my tiny little group of Cattleyas and Cattleya Alliance. And that used to be a big group. The reason it's not a big group anymore is the dreaded F word. Hit that section hard. Over half my plants just got dumped basically. And a couple of them, like this one, highlighted in bright red, was actually infected, but I like it so much and it showed signs of pulling through that it's had treatment and is being kept, but it's still on the endangered list. It's got hedge written all over it, that one. And then there's my Bulbophyllums, Brassivolas, some Brassia types, and then my Arengus right at the top of the list. They're the only ones starting with A. So I used to have a column here where I have a spray date. I still use that if I spray an individual plant with anything, so that I know it's been sprayed. The main reason for keeping that as a known date is so as I don't overdose anything by spraying it with what are quite strong chemicals in some cases, the systemic ones, too frequently. That's not going to do the plant any good at all. Okay, so this is the genus basically, so Arengus here. And I've got a little semi-code that I use. If it's a species, then it will be in italics. Yeah? If it's a hybrid, it'll be in upright normal text. So that's just for me. But then I've got the actual species name, in this case Critata. Brief description, you know, and a description of the blooms if I've seen them. I don't normally put descriptions of blooms until I've had them myself. Okay, moving across, I've then got a column here which is a hyperlink. And every time something blooms, unless I dramatically forget, which has happened, I've got some that have only ever bloomed once and I didn't take a picture. Duh! But that's a hyperlink. So if I click on that, it will eventually, because it takes a while, because it has to load the software that I have standardized, and up comes the picture of the bloom. Now that picture there, they're on a separate folder in my computer, And when I'm doing my videos, I can actually just open that folder up and pull these pictures out and put them as a pop-up in the video. So they serve two purposes. Let's just shut that down because that loads in a separate bit of software. So right, that's that. Moving across, I'll have to go up to the top now because I need to see what I called the column headings. Okay, I started a new column not that long ago, which is basically spike or buds started. So that's the date I first saw them. And then in the next column, I've got the date it actually bloomed. So the difference between the two dates is how long it takes for the buds or spikes to develop and open. And that's quite useful for me. And then in the date bloomed column, I will mark if I see something in bud in a nice bright colour so that I can see it. And when it actually opens, I'll update it with a totally different colour to say it's in flower, put the date it opened and question marks in the date the blooms finish. And then when the blooms finish, I'll update that date, get rid of the fact that it's in flower and grey it out so it becomes history. And I keep a couple of lots of history. I mean, this one I only used to keep the month, so that particular plant, which is off the edge of the screen because I've blown it up so much, bloomed in June and July. The next time it bloomed was October into November, and the next time it bloomed was a year later and was in fact last year in November, and I forgot to update the date, which is why it got left. Okay, that's that sort of thing. And then I have the number of blooms, which can only be an average, but it helps me see progress. For instance, this plant here only had 2 blooms last time it bloomed. Well, if next time it blooms it's got 3 or 4, then obviously it's doing better, so I would update that column. And where it's bloomed several times and it varies, I'll put something like 5 or 6. I now keep when the new roots come out. That's quite important for repotting, and you know, some of them just seem to put out new roots when they feel like it, so I've just put those as occasionally. Some push out new roots anytime because of the type of plant it is. Phalaenopsis would come into that category. They can grow new roots throughout the year, but some of them with new growths. That's important. Yeah, so as soon as I saw a new growth, I know that the new roots are going to follow quite quickly. But then this one, as bulbs are semi-mature, so it would pay to leave that particular plant a bit longer and let the new growths get a bit bigger because there's going to be a delay before the new roots come out. Next column is where I got it from and when. Okay, so you can see that one came in 2015 in November, and it came from the Netherlands. Now that's a favourite seller of mine that I haven't bought from for a while, but I don't need to put the guy's name in there. It's the only one I've ever bought from in the Netherlands. The next one down came from the Bournemouth Orchid Society, so that was off the sales table. The next one, it just says internet. That means it was probably a one-off purchase from a private seller. So you can see the sort of, that one came from Burnham's, that one came from Lawrence Hobbs. But it keeps a history, like that one I got in 2013 in April. So I've had that one quite a while. Yeah, but it gives me that history. Then we get into the repot date. Yeah, and like I said, the orange ones are mounted orchids. The ones in green have been repotted into Orchiata bark. There are some other things to look at in that column. We now have a totally different colour. That indicates that it's in a holy pot. So if I particularly just water the holy pots on a given day, I can find them quickly to update the notes. The next column is what I actually watered them with and the date I did it. Now I'm a bit slack on that column sometimes because I've got the main headings right down the bottom to say what was done. But again, the date and what was actually used. So on the 17th, RO water plus MSU at a level of 180, TDS reading of 180. So that's that. Let's move across a bit more and see what else we've got. Not too many more. That's the last of the columns. We'll just go up to the column headings again. So these are general columns. Now I know what's at the other end of that. That's my Orengis citrata. The main plant's growing tip was lost, but a new plantlet is now growing with signs of new root growth. Okay, and that's still as that plant is. Again, I'm a bit slack on updated these. The next one down, 3 spikes pushing on. That's Decariana, I think. Let me go and have a look. Yes, Decariana. That's the one I was in a video quite recently because it's got 3 spikes on it. And it'll be the first time it's ever bloomed. So that's good. So 3 spikes pushing on. Up in the roof for more light and heat. Because when I got my Orengis book, that's the one that needs higher light than the other 3. So it's got a different colour on it. Good new leaves, small but mature plant, root looks reasonable, wavy edge leaves. It's just a general thing. The next one down, small phalaenopsis-like plant grown from seed by Alan Burdis. That's a guy at our Orchid Society. Grows a lot of things from seed and produces his own Paphiopedilum hybrids. I wouldn't like to try that personally, but there you go. And then this one is 2 separate plants, new leaves on both plants, some good roots, new ones showing. So this is just a general outline. And then we get on to the colour coding down here. Anything that's got red on it is in a bad state. And it's bright red in a big box so that I can actually spot it. And just keep my eye on it. If it's in the pale green colour, I don't need to worry about it. It's doing fine. So that's that one. If it's yellow, it means it was probably red once and now it's recovering. So it looks poor, but it's recovering. And the other little sort of things there, I go, looks okay, miniature, needs heat and light. Yeah? Looks okay, miniature, medium light. Well, by saying it's a miniature, I don't expect it to grow 5 foot tall, do I? So it just means it gives me a bit more of a clue. And the last column is the minimum winter temperature recommended for that plant. Yeah? Now, in previous winters, I have supplied heating at night to keep my minimum temperature. The thermostat is set at 13.5 and it's got a 2-degree variance on it. So when it gets down to 13.5, it kicks on, combined with a circulating fan to get that heat round quickly, and it takes it up to 15.5. And then obviously it shuts down and the temperature slowly drops down again until it kicks in and repeats the process. That minimum temperature this winter's going up because some of the plants suffered a bit last winter, I'm pretty sure. Not 100% confident, but things like my Psychopsis went downhill, both of them. And when you sort of look up, they're warm growers. They shouldn't drop down below 18 really. A few degrees on odd nights won't do a plant any harm. But to go from a recommended 18 on a regular basis down to 13.5 has set those plants back. It's too cold. Now the other choice is bring them in the house. But what I think I'm going to do is just up the temperature a bit on the thermostat this winter. Bearing in mind that heater only kicks in on the coldest nights. So it might cost me a few pennies more, so be it. There's a lot of plants out there. So that's the columns. And yeah, just coming down here. So there's a couple of red ones there. I can come back across here. That's why it's red. The last time that was repotted, I found Fusarium in the plant. Yeah? So it's been repotted in a holy clay pot, hence the bluey colour here, with large bark, keep and water separate. Yeah? So, yeah, some additional notes there. And here again, you know, Fusarium found, so I have to keep my eye on those too. And then I'll do things like this. I did say I'd get back to this. In the repot column with the date, any that's in red means it says media unknown, but looks okay for now, that sort of thing. But it's in an unknown media because I didn't pot it. And then I put a comment in there, that's obviously a new plant. Repot as soon as possible. Well, again, it's not urgent, so I would wait until a suitable time. So that's really my notes. That's how I work them. And they are updated most days. I keep this sort of information here. I got a plant from Burnham's, and in the next column down is an identical plant, but it was a split. So the original plant I've still got, but basically that was Kiki's taken from above, i.e. from the plant above. So I've now got two, and I'm growing on some Kiki's. One there came from Malvern. So that's my notes. That's what I do and why I do it. Just going across the column headings again, and I am reading them out because I'm aware that this text is small. So I've got an overall date at the top. Now when I do a main watering day, I select the whole of this spreadsheet, copy it and paste it in the next available line. So I've taken a copy of the whole lot and recreated it. And that's how my history is kept. This is my latest set of data. My last main watering day was Monday the 17th of the 7th. Well, the whole lot's repeated above. Yeah? Until we get up to the top of this. I bet that's making you dizzy, isn't it? At this size font, it's not doing me a lot of good. And there you get the previous copy, which was done on the 10th of the 7th. So that's how I keep this historical view. And obviously the spreadsheet gets bigger and bigger as the weeks go on. And about every 2 or 3 months, I take the top section of the spreadsheet off and save it into a separate file, leaving a much smaller, tidier spreadsheet. Because this software is not Microsoft Office, it's actually OpenOffice, which is a free version that you can get on the internet. It's got the elements that Microsoft Office have got, it's just free and quite honestly not quite as good, but the difference doesn't worry me. I don't need it to be that good. So this isn't even being used like a proper spreadsheet, I'm using it for text. Well, spreadsheets are supposed to be for number crunching and formulas and stuff. And statistics, not text. So this is a clumsy way to use a spreadsheet, but nice columns, you know, works for me, and I can color code. So that's my notes. Light intensity down here, plant name, brief description with details of blooms if I've had any, picture of the blooms if I've had any. Yeah, back up to the column headings. Where are we? Come on. There we go. And then I've got relatively new piece of information when the buds or the spikes are first spotted. That might be a day or two out here and there, but it's not the end of the world. So that's that one. The date it actually bloomed, updated with the date the blooms finish. So that tells me when they start, how long they take to develop, and how long they last. And historically, when it last bloomed. I only ever keep 3. I never go back more than 3. The cell would get too big. Number of blooms, well, I need to get some before I can do that. When the new roots seem to appear, where I got it from, when it was last repotted, and normally in my notes and comments, if something's been recently repotted, I'll say what with, like small bark mixed with sphagnum or large bark. Yeah, so that sort of detail. And the column that gets updated the most often is the watering details, because that keeps the record of when I fed them and how strong the feed was. That's quite important to me. It also keeps a record of when I flush. Also, a lot more important this year because I made mistakes with that last year. Some just general notes, general comments, put what you like in there or not bother. And then its health and its size and whether it's in danger of going under the hedge or whether it's doing well. And last column, the minimum winter temperature. And then the other colour code, which you'll start seeing a lot of as we progress down here, is whether it needs anything special in the winter. And you can see here, I'm into the dendrobium section. I don't need to go and look. So we're coming up against those that need some form of winter rest. Yeah? So they've got a colour in the temperature so that I've got them as a set. I can find them quickly. That's all it's for. Yeah, I know I'm in the dendrobium section. There's loads of them. And then there won't be any after that. because it is mainly dendrobiums. But I do have plants that are not dendrobiums where their recommended care says keep drier in the winter. Yeah? So they would still have that colour code because, you know, they'll miss a watering every 2 or 3. You know, so just to keep them that bit drier. So that's my notes. Returning to the bottom. Dizzy yet? And then, as I said, these are the main things going on down here. So that's what I do and why I do it. Do your own thing by all means. There are some very good apps that you can get for phones to keep copious notes about your orchids and constantly update them with new information and pictures and all sorts of things. And a lot of people have only got a phone as a tool. I mean, I'm on this computer quite a lot. That's why I got the bigger film sized screen, because I watch films on here quite frequently in my comfy chair with my 5.1 surround sound system with the big subwoofer underneath, and I find films entertaining. Okay, so that's my notes. What are the notes that I keep, why I keep them, and the sort of details that I keep. And as I said, if you're looking at this on a phone, you're not going to see a lot, which is why I put the words in there as well. Okay, now I've got to try and get this back to the normal size because I can see the whole width of the spreadsheet on this screen comfortably with my eyesight. So I'm okay, but I appreciate for filming that it needed to be a bit bigger and probably still a bit small for a lot of people. But that's it. That's my notes. See you next time.